Why we need to make sure that while the US is closing its market and really taking its own path regarding protectionism, that we, as a stable and democratic country, continue to have open markets, including with the EU. And that's my job.
U.S. President Donald Trump is threatening to impose 35% tariffs on Canadian imports.
Now, in a statement from Prime Minister Mark Carney that was posted late last night, just before midnight, he says that Canada will work towards a revised deadline of August 1st.
That ultimately, while the U.S. is becoming weaker, we will become stronger, and we will diversify and turn ourselves towards Europe.
We will need to ensure that Canada can succeed in a drastically different world. The old relationship we had with the United States, based on deepening integration of our economies and tight security and military cooperation, is over.
This is not a drill. The world's most stable trading partnership is on the brink. The United States is threatening to unleash a 35% tariff on all Canadian import. The deadline? August 1st. In response, Canada has set its own deadline for resolution, July 21st. This isn't just a trade dispute, it's a countdown. And Canada isn't the only target. Brazil has been hit with a staggering 50% tariff. The European Union is on the clock. This is President Trump's second-term trade strategy, using tariffs not as economic tools, but as political weapons, and the world is holding its breath. For over 60 years, the US and Canada built one of the closest economic alliances in history. Goods, services, and people flowed across the border, governed by rules and agreements like NAFTA and the USMCA. That structure is now under immense pressure. In a move that has shaken global markets, President Trump is threatening a blanket 35% tariff on Canadian goods. The official reasons cited are familiar: fentanyl trafficking and barriers to US dairy products. However, analysts argue this is about raw leverage. Trump sees Canada not as a partner, but as a bargaining chip. The response from Ottawa was unconventional. There was no fiery press conference. Instead, just before midnight, Prime Minister Mark Carney posted a quiet but firm message online. He announced that Canada would continue to defend its workers and businesses while working toward a revised deadline of August 1st. It was a calm, strategic adjustment designed to lower the temperature and keep the doors to negotiation open. This threat doesn't exist in a vacuum. It's part of a broader, more aggressive US trade policy. In this second term, President Trump has weaponized tariffs against allies. Brazil was slammed with 50% duties, a move Trump himself linked to Brazil's handling of its former president, Jair Bolsonaro. It was a clear signal that these economic measures are now intertwined with political punishment. The latest flashpoint is copper. The Trump administration imposed a 50% duty on copper imports, invoking national security under Section 232 of the Trade Expansion Act. Few believe Canadian copper threatens US security. Many experts suggest the real target is China, the world's largest copper supplier. By hitting all exporters, the US creates a wide net of pressure, aiming to force countries into new bilateral deals. This tactic even has a name in Washington: Liberation Day tariffs. Over 20 nations have been warned. For a time, Canada was spared. Now, it's clear no one is safe. While the Prime Minister's office projects calm, other parts of the Canadian government are shifting from patience to preparation. Industry Minister Melanie Joly publicly denounced the copper tariff as illegal under international trade rules and a direct attack on Canadian workers. Behind the scenes, the government is in overdrive. Joly has been meeting with executives from major mining firms like Glencore and Teck Resources, as well as union leaders. Canada has tied its response to a firm deadline, July 21st. If no deal is reached, retaliation is on the table. The message is clear: if diplomacy fails, countermeasures like the steel tariffs Canada has used before will follow. This isn't just about copper. For Canadian businesses in Quebec and Ontario, the unpredictability is crippling. Long-term planning is impossible when the rules can change with a single social media post. As one economist put it, uncertainty is the tariff you don't see but feel every day. The shockwaves are global. On July 9th, the White House announced a 50% tariff on all imports from Brazil, effective August 1st, and launched a formal Section 301 investigation. Brazil didn't get a negotiation window, it got a punishment. The European Union is also in the hot seat, scrambling to finalize a deal before its own August 1st deadline. EU leaders say talks are making progress, but Italy's economy minister warns a final text may not be ready until the last minute. This creates a high-stakes, multi-front trade war. The US is targeting sectors like semiconductors and pharmaceuticals, warning that countries moving closer to China will face heightened scrutiny. In response, China has threatened its own retaliation against nations signing deals with the US that harm its interests. We are now in a countdown. For Canada, the clock runs out on July 21st. For the EU and Brazil, it's August 1st. President Trump is reshaping global trade not through treaties, but through threats and deadlines. The core question is no longer just whether Canada will retaliate, but whether the rules-based system that has governed global trade for decades can survive this onslaught. The world is watching to see whether North America remains a free trade zone or descends into a spiral of tit-for-tat protectionism. The next few days will decide.